So we've been discussing, actually this will be lecture 16, okay? It's not 6 fingers on my hand, so I can't make the 16 symbol. Once we got to 15, I was done. We'll have to wait till we get to like 20, right? Before we start doing that action again. So 16, lecture 16, not, it's video 16, not lecture 16. Kind of missed one, not the video. We actually didn't even lecture, just gave you an assignment. So, the last video, let's see a show of hands of who saw it. 1, you guys got to watch it. You 2, who saw it? So you're caught up?
No, wait, yeah.
Good. You're not caught up?
No.
Oh, this is good stuff. You missed a lot.
Perfect.
Oh, well, you got it on video. So watch it, okay? And you haven't seen it, but you got it. Because all of this is going to come down. These videos right now are very critical as to how you do on your tests. You know, I got some exams I'm going to start putting up for you. And they're going to ask questions about distinctions, the real distinction, the modal distinction. They're going to talk about token, and type, identity theory, which was on there, behaviorism, and methodological behaviorism, and all that stuff that is all on the videos. That if you fail to watch the videos, then you're like, oh man, where's the, and so I want you to keep up with them in time so you're not cramming one night going, where's this, speeding through the video, right? Trying to figure it out. Because that's going to be very difficult, don't you think? That would just turn me into a quick guesser. Okay, so watch the videos. They're actually, some of them are, they're relatively interesting because it's an interesting topic. It's easy for me because the topic's so easy. I don't even have to be that cool. It's just talk about philosophy and it's like, yeah, this is pretty heavy stuff. Okay, so watch it and hopefully I do well enough that you guys, I keep your attention long enough and you guys can learn. Okay, so but where we left off is we left off finishing, we literally finished discussing the non-reductive physicalism, right, as an approach to the philosophy of mind. And in philosophy of mind, what are we asking? We're asking what the mind is, or the soul. Does it exist at all? Who am I? Am I just a physical thing? And the materialists, the physicalists, believe that you are nothing but a mind. I mean, a brain, or a body, a physical thing. And they're trying to give an account for mental events. What are mental events? Are they physical events or something else? If you're a physicalist, you have to say they're physical things. They cannot be anything else, if that makes sense to you. See, the naturalist position here is that everything is physical, right? And that all S is P statement, S being everything that exists, right? The P being physical, all things are physical. Minds are something, therefore they must be physical. So to what am I referring to when I say the mind? Well, they'll say, well, the brain, I guess. Okay, so let's talk about a mental event, pain. Well, what part of the brain is that? Well, we'll call it a C fiber firing event. There's nerves that go up and down the body into the brain and all that, right? And when I feel pain, there's a certain fiber that gets stimulated. It's a fiber that fires. You go, that's pain. And you go, wait a minute, that's correlation. Just because it correlates, it goes together, doesn't make it pain, right? And we ask the question, if A is identical to B and B is identical to A, they must have all the same properties, right? And I can hold a C fiber in my hand, literally, right? But can I hold your pain in my hand? I cannot. There are features of one that are not present with the other. But we can imagine a world where there's pain that exists without C fibers, or we can imagine C fibers existing without pain. Therefore, we know that they are really distinct, that there's a real distinction. Remember your real distinction? Say yes.
Yes.
Yes, awesome, because now do you really remember it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because when we split the two parties up, I don't know. Because there are things I taught my Tuesday class that if you didn't watch the video, you might go, no, I don't know that one. Right? But you know that, you know the modal distinction, right? Okay, good. So that's important for today, and it's still a review in a sense if you watch the video. We were talking about the two types of dualism. See, monism says that the mind is one substance, and it's either physical or non-physical, and we've dealt primarily with the physical concept of monism, right? You could be an idealist to believe that everything is non-physical, and that would include the mind, and that would all be fine and well. But that would be a denial of the physical world, which some people do, okay? It's all fine and well. But I didn't focus too much on that. Now I'm dealing with dualism. Dualism says there are two substances, okay? Or at least there's a distinction between the mind and the body, or mind and the brain, or the mental events and the physical events. And the question is, what kind of distinction is it? Now, if you watched the last video, which you did, I gave a discussion of what's called property dualism. And property dualism suggests, and you saw it on the Porphyrian tree, right?
Yeah,
Was it
I saw
easy?
the tree and the levee and the dam and all that.
Oh yeah, was that good?
Yeah,
Good.
that was like the most you've ever written, I think, on the board.
On the board, I know. I know. Well, again, you notice how every time I'd add to it, it just gets bigger and bigger, right? Yeah, and I'm tempted to get up there and just put it back up there for our own reference today, right? But then I'm like, it's already on the video, and I just refer back to the video so you guys can watch it. And all that writing takes time, and it looks cool, but we were talking about property dualism. Maybe I should put that part up. How's that?
Okay.
Just for, because we want to talk about the property dualism. I want to review a little bit about substance dualism. And, and then I want us to move on to our next topic. So it's really just kind of a review of what we did before. So remember, in philosophy of mind, we had the monist. I'm not going to draw it all out again, even though it looks like I'm going that way. And then we had the dualists over here, right? Dualism, and I gave two. I gave property dualism and substance dualism. Property dualism suggests that the mind is a result of the complexity of the brain in some way, and it emerges. This is why people call it emergentism, because out of the complexity some new property emerges, or you'll hear it called epiphenomenalism, okay? And so the idea is that the brain creates the mind, like the car creates the shadow. But the shadow, as I stated before, is along for the ride. It is not the driver. The shadow is actually determined by the movement of the car, the position of the car. Property dualism suggests that the mind is the result of the brain. The result of the brain, not the cause of the brain. So the mental events, say your thoughts, your desires, your perceptions, everything that anything that's a mental event, according to property dualism, would be the result of a brain event. That means there is no free will. And if there's no free will, I think this is where I ended the video, you really don't have any blameworthiness, no moral culpability.
Or like praiseworthiness, right?
Or praiseworthiness, for that matter. How do you praise something for following the laws of physics? And so, why would you go, as J.P. Moreland would say, when it comes to this, why would you go to the psychology department or to the theology department, right, for your problems if, your real problem is physics? That is, if the mind is just a result of the brain, go fix the brain in total, do whatever, of course, that presupposes you have free will to do so, which you don't, right? Atoms don't have free will. Humans have free will. Therefore, humans are not atoms. Now, bodies are atoms, but what, possesses them is something else. Now, of course, then that was in contrast. The property dualism is in contrast to the substance dualist, and the substance dualist says that there's a real distinction between the soul or the mind and the body, and that the mind can exist without the body and the body can exist without the mind. And in the lecture, I gave examples of people being dead on the table and there being no mental, I should say no brain events, no physical brain events. The EEG is flat. The person is brain dead. The body is brain dead, meaning there is no action. You are having no brain event, yet there are mental events. The patient comes back to life. The patient reveals what was going on with the doctors in the room or with family members not even in the hospital. And they say, I had all sorts of, encounters or seeing things that were happening, and you can confirm this. And I saw one of my students said she saw herself outside of her own body, right? And that's not unheard of. This is very common, right? So what you have, brain events or mental events without brain events. If you have mental events without brain events, it shows that mental events are not dependent on brain events, as property dualism would suggest. And if you have mental events that are not dependent on brain events, that means property dualism must be false. It also shows that the mental is not identical to the physical. And if the mental is not identical to the physical, then the physicalistic monist position is also false. And in this case, what we suggest is that the substance dualist will say that the soul inhabits the body, and the soul drives the body. And the faculties of the mind, the soul, that is, the intellect, the will, and the emotions. Intellect, will, the emotions, and the appetites. If you recall all that in another lecture, do you all remember all that stuff? Those are located in the mind. And we make use of the brain to operate. You have a broken body. Say you have a broken foot, you're going to limp, right? What if your brain isn't working that well? Well, then your mind is not going to work that well. Okay, so the mind can affect the body, the mind can affect the brain, and the brain can affect the mind. And in psychology, what we try to do is affect the mind. We try to affect the mind so that we can do with the body the right thing. Now, if you have a broken body, it's good to fix it. So there are some things we could do to fix the brain when we notice that there are levels of chemicals that are off. That would help us think better, to help us relieve certain issues that ail us. Get rid of phenomena that we should not be hearing, like hearing voices and stuff like that, for those who have those issues. So there's no real stigma, or shouldn't be a stigma, of being on any kind of medication that helps the brain. You're just, after all, fixing the body. And there should be no stigma about going to a psychologist or a theology guy or any counselor to help you have the right thoughts. Because obviously, if you're a mind, you want to operate properly. Because wisdom, right, is what? Knowledge rightly applied to its proper end. So we need to know something, then we need to apply it. And so part of the faculties of the mind is in the intellect, to have knowledge. We don't just guess our way through lives, right? So from there, we have a great cognitive psychology that had been developed in the Middle Ages, where you fix wrong beliefs. And once you have these wrong beliefs adjusted, your life tends to get a little easier, right? And your soul tends to be, in better condition. If you're walking around with false beliefs all the time, it's going to get quite stressful. All right. So we'll talk a bit more about the mind. I want to talk, not right now, eventually we're going to talk about this when we get to philosophy of science. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about philosophy of religion. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But today I want to talk a little bit about a book that I wanted you to be reading. So let's talk about that book. It's called The Mckee in Ethics. Who has their books on it?
Excuse me? Repeat?
Your Aristotle book.
Oh,
If not, I'm going to read a little to you. Okay? And I want to point something out to you because it'll go with kind of like our pre-lecture, what I was saying. And you're going to go, oh, that's kind of deep what you were saying. I hope it was deep. But the reason has any depth is not because I stole it, but because it really does conform to good philosophy. Okay? We're going to talk a little bit about Aristotle today. We need to get our readings done. One of our readings is the Mckee in Ethics. We're going to read book 1 of that. Who's read that so far? I know I've assigned it. You've read it. I've
read it prior to this class.
Good. So that's good. So if you reread it, you should get more out of it. Yeah. I read it every semester, not the whole thing, but lots of it, and it's just well worth it. Okay, it's not like scripture. It's like scripture, you keep getting more out of it. Scriptures have a lot more authoritative, but it is something. It's a great read that you can continually get new things out of. So I have Terrence Irwin's translation, and it's kind of torn up. I've had it for a little too long, and I think I need to tape it. I need to. Anyway, take better care of my books. I've had it a long time, not quite as long as it was written. It's not. Allegedly, this wasn't exactly his writing. That this might be the notes of his students, but even if it is, what a great set of notes. So a little bit about this guy. He was born in Macedon. I guess that makes him a Macedonian nut. And he lived under the King Philip, and under his son, that would be Philip's son, was Alexander, otherwise known as Alexander the Great. Aristotle tutored Alexander the Great. All right, Aristotle was a student of Plato. Plato was a student of Socrates. So allegedly, this is the Mckee in Ethics is named after his son Nicomachus. But anyway, there's a whole lot to go on. I think we talked about Philip of Macedon when we were talking about Plato, and I think we were talking about the Oracle of Delphi that Philip went to visit. Do you remember that lecture?
Yeah.
So he goes because he's like afraid that his wife Olympus had, an affair with Zeus because he caught her with a snake, and then she was pregnant with Alexander. So Philip of Macedon was questioning whether or not Alexander was his real son, or was he the son of Zeus? And so lots of innuendo about Alexander's sexuality, his relationship with his father is clearly horrible. Philip tried to attack him one night in a drunken rage, and didn't go over so well. Anyway, this book, starting with book 1 of the Mckee in Ethics, you can pronounce it different ways. Some people call it the Mckee in Ethics. I hear Mckee in a lot. I tend to just kind of mangle it whenever I say it either way. However you say it, it's fine with me. But book 1 starts off asking the question, what is happiness? In America, We live in America still, if I'm correct. Texas is not quite seceded yet. Give us a couple more weeks. Joking, see how the election turns out. See if Texas wants to stay in the Union. And in America, we assume that we have certain rights that were at least declared to England, right? In the Declaration of Independence by Thomas Jefferson, who wrote, "All men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, such as the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Correct? So the real question is, do you have a right to pursue happiness? The answer is yes. The second question I would ask then is, what are you pursuing if it's happiness? Have you been snipe hunting before?
No.
Do you want to go with me?
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, right? Does anybody know what snipe hunting is in here?
No.
Oh boy, we should all go on a snipe hunt. I'll let you in on the game. Snipe hunting is where you take somebody who doesn't hunt and you say, we're going snipe hunting, and you put a gun in their hand and you're like, you make them look for something that doesn't exist.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they're hunting for something that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
And
a
it's
snipe.
there to make them look like a fool.
A snipe. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, what if I said happiness is a snipe?
Something that doesn't exist, but we all search for.
It's kind of like that, although I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. That's not what I'm saying, and certainly Aristotle is not going to say that.
Yeah.
But the point is, when I ask people what a snipe is, they go, I don't know. When I ask what happiness is, I often get the exact same answer. Yet people will say, I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
But how do you know you want to be happy if you don't even know what it is? Right? So one of the things that you're going to find, if you haven't found out by now, in philosophy, we love to define terms. We love to become univocal in our language, where when I say happiness, you and I have the same definition of it, right? Make sense? We like to have the same definition. What is justice? Remember, Socrates asking that question. Well, now we go, what's happiness? After all, I want to be happy, so I better know what I want. Okay? So let's read a little here. It's funny that a book on ethics should start with happiness, though, right? Do you have any ideas of what happiness is? Well, you read the book, you should.
Well, I feel like, honestly, not even based off of that, like, my own perception of happiness is something that just comes and goes.
Comes
it's
what?
Not, like, something that just comes and goes. Like, it's never
Sometimes comes and goes.
it's never a feeling that you can just stay in. Like
A feeling.
or
So
an
you've
emotion.
identified it as a feeling that comes and goes.
Yeah.
So it's an emotion.
Yeah.
Is it? So that's what most people believe it to be.
Okay.
But isn't that a mistake? Wouldn't joy be what you're looking at? Isn't joy what you're describing? Joy is an emotion. Happiness might be something else that includes joy at times.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, do you want joy all the time?
I mean,
Would it be appropriate to be joyful if your mom and dad died?
No.
No. Well, not unless they're trying to kill you and they're really evil people and you're like, oh God.
You say the same for you don't want to be happy if your mom and dad died.
Well, you could say, I am happy, but it depends what you mean by happy.
Well, also depends on what you mean by joy.
Well, joy is that emotional state of elation and, pleasure. It's a pleasurable, elated sense. So you're smiling, and that's the behavior that usually comes with it, right? That's joy. But you'd say that if you're crying over your family, that's appropriate, right?
Yeah.
Let's hear about what Aristotle has to say a bit, okay? I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too soon. Then you go, well, I don't need to read that.
Oh,
Part of this is the process. One of the things Aristotle is going to tell us is what happiness is not. And that usually helps us in some things. Like say happiness is not a chair, right, okay, but what he's gonna say is happiness is not things that we often associate it with. Okay, so let's see what he has to say here. Oh, and he's gonna get really kind of deep on us. He's gonna say every craft and every line of inquiry and likeness, every action and decision seems to seek some good. That's why some people were right to describe the good as what everything seeks. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? Look at me in the back. Everything you do and every action you take is towards some kind of good. Well, if that's the case, isn't that the good that which you seek? Right? But the ends that are sought appear to differ. Some are activities and others are products apart from the activities. Wherever there are ends apart from the actions, the products are by nature better than the activities. That sounds really confusing to you because you're not reading it. What is he saying? Everything you do is for something else, so the thing that you are doing it for must be better than the thing you're actually doing to get it. You're writing notes to get knowledge, so the knowledge must be better than the notes. Okay? Since there are many actions and crafts and sciences, and think of that word science in the term of knowledge, the ends turn out to be many as well. So there are lots of things we do things for. For health is the end of medicine. I take medicine for health, right? I'm not taking it because I like medicine. I'm taking it for health. My kids think it's candy. They're taking it for joy, for pleasure. That is, to eat the Flintstone vitamin because they think it's candy. A boat building. So, right? If you're building a boat, you're not building it, you're building it to have the boat. And the boat is better than the actual building of it. A hammer is good for building a boat. But the boat is better because that's what you need the hammer for, correct? Victory of generalship and wealth of household management, meaning you have money to spend on things, and the things you spend it on, the house, the car, the groceries, the insurance, and all the like, is better than the greenbacks that you possess. Those are good in order to get that higher ordered good. You notice that the thing you're getting is better than that which you are putting into it. But some of these pursuits are subordinate to one capacity. For instance, bridle making and every other science producing equipment for horses are under or subordinate to horsemanship. Well, this and every action in warfare, in turn, subordinate to generalship. And in the same way, other pursuits are subordinate to further ones. In all such cases, then, the ends of the ruling sciences are more choice-worthy than all the ends subordinate to them, since the lower ends are also pursued for the sake of the higher. Here, it does not matter whether the ends of the actions or the activities themselves or something apart from them, as in the sciences we have mentioned. Suppose then that the things achievable by action have some end that we wish for itself. Okay, now let me ask you a couple questions here. What do you want money for? You like money, right? You do work for money, correct?
I guess I like money.
Do you do work for money?
Yeah, I work for money.
Where do you work?
You shipped.
Cool.
Deliver groceries.
That is correct, yes. Okay, I know what that is.
Shop floor.
Yes, I have used that. What a great invention.
Very helpful.
COVID has certainly brought out that's amazing. Isn't necessity the mother of all invention? We couldn't get out, we needed to get our groceries, we needed somebody to do it for us. You Shipped comes along, and holy moly, billion-dollar industry has started. Lots of employment going on nowadays. And you don't even need a college degree for it.
Took me 10 minutes to apply.
Praise the Lord. Well, guess what? You got a job and you are working for that, and you are getting money. And so the job is subordinate to the money, right? You're doing the job for the money. What do you want? You're doing the job in order to get the money. Okay, so my mask is driving me crazy. It's like sucking in on me. I'm like, yes, I'm that excited. But what do you want the money for?
I want the money for other objects.
You don't want the money for itself, do you? People say, I want to be rich. Oh, really? Do you really want to be rich? Or you really want a bunch of greenbacks?
I want the money to get one.
Like, do you remember, did you ever see Breaking Bad?
I've seen parts.
So his wife, her name is Skylar, she's trying to launder all this drug money he's bringing in. I hope I'm not spoiling for those.
You probably did, because I didn't even get to that part.
So basically, they have it in this storage shed, this big pile of money. She's like, I don't even know what to do with it. There's so much of it here. I can't launder it all. But it's like, do you want the money? And he couldn't spend it either.
Yeah.
You know why he couldn't spend it? Because if he spent it, it would draw attention to him because he's not supposed to have all that money. And all of a sudden, the IRS is going to come around and go, hey, where'd you get all that money? You know? And anyway, he's going to find himself in jail for, like Capone did, for tax evasion and probably drug dealing. And you didn't know he does that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Walter, you got to that part.
I knew that part.
Okay, you at least watched episode 2.
Yeah.
All right, so he didn't want the money for the money. That's a bummer. He's like, I can't even spend the money. Hell's money I can't spend. He didn't want the money for the money's sake. He wanted the money for something else, right?
Yep.
What do you want the money for?
You wanted to pay for
Medical stuff and household stuff. You want to
household stuff.
own a house. Household management. That's what Aristotle said, right? Raise a family. You know, put your kids through school. Give them some clothes, some shoes, nice iPhone, right? What do you want the house for?
You want the house so that you are protected from the environment.
Okay, so you need it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want it for something else.
Yeah.
So the protection is actually a higher order good.
Yeah.
Job, money, house, protection. See, these are all subordinate to protection. They're all leading up there to security and protection. So Aristotle's making that claim. Now, somewhere up there is a good, like money is a good, a job is a good, money is a good, house is a good, protection is a good, right? Somewhere up there is a good that is not desired, that is not instrumental. It is intrinsically good, and it is good for itself. Where you get to a point where you go, I don't want this for something else. I want this for something, I don't want this for something else. This is what I want. Did you catch that? Suppose then, all things achievable by action have some end that we wish because of itself, and because of which we wish for other things, and that we do not choose everything because of something else. For if we do, it would go on without limit, ad infinitum, so that that desire will prove to be empty and futile. Clearly, this end will be the good, that is to say, the best good. Then surely knowledge of this good also carries great weight for determining the best way of life. If we know it, we are more likely, yes, I read it correctly. We are more likely, like archers who have a target to aim at, to hit the mark. This is not in the book what I'm about to say, but if you aim at nothing, you are guaranteed to hit it. Did you catch that? Now, before we hit play on this thing, I gave a little lecture about success. I talked about falling down and getting up, right? Effort and resilience and determination are great for success. But the one thing for success is that you know what you're aiming at, okay? Guy me the other day is talking about becoming a gunsmith. He wants to be a gunsmith. He's thinking about going in the military. I said, well, then you're going to the wrong place. First of all, it's possible you could get some kind of gunsmith training in there, but I highly doubt it. I know we had armorers who did work on guns, and we did this fixing of the guns and stuff, and that probably helped, yes. But his best bet, if he wanted to get what he wanted, that is, the best way to do it is to go to the gunsmith school. He knows what his target is. How many of you have a major already? You do. Oh yeah, I like the way he did that. You do. He's like, maybe.
No, I do, but.
I'm thinking of changing it, right? What's your major?
Bio, but I might.
Change it.
Consider it.
Okay. What are you aiming at?
Well,
What's your goal? What's the higher end to the biology degree?
go to med school.
Go to med school. So you want to be a physician.
Yeah, I wanted to, but.
Wanted to, but now you don't.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Let me ask you another question. Why do you want to be a physician?
To help people.
To help people.
Yeah.
Is that really what you want to do?
No, that's why I'm changing my major.
I mean, there are other. Look, there are many ways to help people. You can work at a food kitchen, soup kitchen. You can homeless shelters. You can you can be a nurse, still be in the medical field. You can be a psychologist. You could be a professor. That's a very hard job to get into. You can be a pastor of a church, right? Priest if you're Catholic. So many ways to help people. So many ways. And you choose medicine. Well, there may be other things you want too. Good money for helping people. Respect from your peers. You go, I'm a doctor, and it feels cool to be a physician, right? I'm not a doctor like my philosophy professor's a doctor. I could actually help you. No. I like it, man. I think it'd be a great profession. Because you do get to help people. A buddy of mine's a physician. He's a missionary physician. So basically he comes back, makes a bunch of money in the States, goes back to the Dominican Republic where he actually lives, spends all that money on his practice so he can give people free medicine out of the goodness of his heart, so he can glorify the Lord. He's in there to help people. But let's not kid ourselves. It's still okay to be a doctor in America and make some money. There's nothing wrong with owning a nice house and a nice car and being called doctor and having some, people think you're cool. I think you're cool. You don't need to be a doctor for me to think you're cool, but but you're rethinking it. Okay, so you don't have a target to aim at right now. No, you don't. Now you need to get a target, okay?
Yeah.
Get a target. Getting a degree though is a great way. It helps you hit your targets later though, okay? And some degrees are better at hitting other targets. You at least get the field in so you can zero in where the bullseye is. Got your major yet?
Yeah, math and finance.
Math and finance. Are you gonna be an accountant or something?
Maybe something.
Something. Be a CIA agent or an FBI agent looking for the money. Go get your accounting degree. I'm just joking. But do you like math and finance?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like math.
So you're not really, and now of course, you guys you're a freshman.
I'm a sophomore.
Sophomore, you're still fine. That's okay. Math and finance major.
Yeah.
Not gonna be an art major? You're not gonna be a painter, right?
Yeah, I know I'm not gonna be.
Yeah, but you
It'd be fun.
I paint a
I
lot.
like painting.
I tell you, since COVID, I've cranked out like 30 paintings. I'm talking big, small, and my whole garage is just this gallery of oil paints. You have a field that you want to do? I know you said math and
I
finance.
told you I wouldn't tell you.
You wouldn't tell me.
Yeah, and you said you were gonna figure it out.
I did?
I told you I wasn't gonna let you figure it out.
Okay, yeah, I haven't given much thought to that. I better start thinking about that one, okay?
Yeah.
That's gonna be a hard one, math and finance. I'm gonna start talking to math and finance professors here and see what they think. I'm gonna bring up your name. They're like, oh yeah, he's gonna be we don't know.
No, they don't even know.
Okay, well,
I haven't told anyone.
maybe it'd be a business, or
Why don't you want anyone to know?
Because if you have an original idea, why would you give that away? If that's worth
Oh.
something.
Oh.
I will steal your idea. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I mean, if it's a valuable idea, why?
That's a
like,
good idea. So you have,
why let
are you an
someone else know?
inventor?
No, I'm not an inventor.
Right?
Definitely not in adventure.
So how are you gonna take this idea that's, okay, whatever.
Mm.
Okay, point is, you got an idea and you got a target to hit at, right?
For the
To
most
aim at.
part. For the most
But you know what you're gonna do, that's my point. Do you have something you're aiming at? Now by the way, I'm limiting it to occupation, have you noticed that? But even your occupation is still a good that is not the highest good.
Correct.
So what we're saying is, will that occupation you get contribute to that highest good?
Yeah.
Maybe, to some degree.
Yep.
But is that occupation the highest good?
No.
No. Would you agree with me on that? And I think that's what Aristotle's getting at.
Yeah.
All right. Then surely knowledge of this good also carries great weight for determining the best way of life. If we know it, we are more likely to hit it like archers who have a target to aim at, to hit the right mark. If so, we should try to grasp in outline at any rate what the good is and which is its proper science or capacity. When he says science, what does he mean? Goes back to that word scientia or episteme, which means knowledge. Okay? Holy moly, this thing's driving me crazy. Sorry. You guys see my face for the first time.
Oh, yeah, that is the first time I've seen your face.
Is it really?
Yes.
How's it look? All right. Seems proper to the most controlling science, the highest ruling science, and this appears characteristic of political science. So he's saying the highest science is not biology, it's political science. Well, you just so happen to be, well, you're in a philosophy class, but I also teach political science. So we're in the highest science. What does he mean by that? He's not talking about liberals, Democrats, and Republican, conservative guys. He's talking about the polis. What is the polis? The polis is the city. Political. The city has to do with where people live. And that humans are political by nature. What would he mean by that? That we gather. We're not loners. Now, some of us have more friends than others, and some of us are more introverted than others, but the reality is, we're not hermits. We hang out with each other. You have friends, you're going to get married, maybe. And you'll be around people. And then once you get around people, what do?
You talk.
You talk. And what do you talk about? How things
Discuss.
ought to be. Talk about how things ought to be, how we should rule ourselves, how we should govern ourselves, how we should structure our lives. And when we're together, how we should act towards one another and how we should not allow people to act towards each other this way. See how that goes? And so this discussion of how we should order our lives in the city where we gather is the highest of sciences, because even your two choices, what's your choice again in major?
Nursing.
Nursing will be part of the polis and how it is ordered, right? We should have a system that has a healthcare system, right? In order to have a good society. Ergo, the society is the greater good than the nursing is, correct? But the nursing is required for that. It's instrumental. Doctors are instrumental. Innovators and entrepreneurs and inventors and people who hold secrets, trade secrets, who will later reveal them so that we can partake in them, put out a good for the city, right? Will we benefit from this, or is it a nuclear weapon you're going to unleash on us?
For sure.
It's like, oh no, I got something for you.
Oh, just for you.
Yeah. I'll check my mail. You know, thing that's ticking.
Big boxes.
Yeah. Anyway.
Unordered packages.
All right. So the highest science is political science, for it is the one that prescribes which of the sciences ought to be studied in the cities, and which ones each class in the city should learn, and how far indeed we see that even the most honored capacities, generalship, household management, and rhetoric, for instance, are subordinate to it. And since it uses other sciences concerned with action, and moreover legislates what must be done and what avoided, its end, what it aims at, right, will include the ends of the other sciences, so that this will be the human good. For even if the good is the same for a city as for an individual, still the good of the city is apparently greater and more complete good to acquire and preserve. He's saying the city is greater than the part, okay? For while it is satisfactory to acquire and preserve the good even for an individual, it is finer and more divine to acquire and preserve it for the people and for cities. That's a deep statement. Is the part greater than the whole in value, or is the whole greater than the part in value? What should we value?
I mean, the parts do make up the whole in a way, but overall the whole, I guess.
Think of the American experiment here, where we value individual rights and liberties. So much so that we don't want to violate other people's rights. So like, Apple didn't want to open up some encrypted phones for the FBI, so the FBI could solve a crime based on terrorism, okay? Because they didn't want to violate an individual's rights, even though that individual was dead, okay, by the way. But the greater good, the whole would have benefited, right? But they weren't going to do it. Because they benefited, because they valued the individual rights of each citizen, that our phones should not be broken into. Isn't that interesting? Of course, Aristotle's kind of flipping it, going, no, the whole is greater than the part. He's not saying that the part's not valuable. He's just saying the whole is greater. Go to China, they see it as expendable. The part is not valuable. The whole is valuable, and the part is expendable. That's why it's easier to put people in political prisons in places that see it that way. You know, because we value the individual, we don't put people in political prisons, even if we think they're wrong. All right, even if we think they're destructive to our society. All right, here we go. For even if the good is the same for the cities and individuals, still the good of the city is apparently greater and more complete good to acquire and preserve. For while it is satisfactory to acquire and preserve the good, even for an individual, it is finer and more divine to acquire and preserve it for the people and for cities. And so, since our line of inquiry seeks these goods for individual and community, it is a sort of political science. Our discussion will be adequate if we make things perspicacious enough. What's perspicacious mean? You looked at your phone, didn't you? Your first thought was phone.
Me? Oh.
That was you, I saw it. And I thought to myself, who's going to go for their phone? I would have.
Wait, are you pointing at me?
Yeah, you didn't look at your phone?
No, my phone is face down.
I know. I was wondering if you're like, should I look at this phone and ask what
No,
perspicacious means?
Because I actually don't know.
I know it. I did. Most people don't.
Well, I was going to expect you to tell me.
Or you were going to Google it. That's what I was thinking. I was waiting for somebody to grab your phone. That's why I
being
jumped.
suspicious of others' perspectives?
No.
Oh, dang it.
No, it wasn't suspicious. I was just predicting my students would go for the dictionary as they ought to.
No, is that what it means?
No.
Perspective, suspicious?
Perspicacious, no.
Wow.
Close.
It's ironic what it means.
What does it mean?
Clearly stated. It means clearly stated. But the word's not clearly stated. It's like we should be perspicacious. You're like, I don't know what that means. I didn't clearly state stated. It just means to be clearly stated. So that's why I wanted to ask. I want to see if anybody go for their phone and Google it, which they should have. I mean, that's the smart thing. Clearly stated or clearly expressed, okay? So our discussion will be adequate if we make things perspicuous enough, clearly stated enough, to accord with the subject matter. For we would not seek the same degree of exactness in all sorts of arguments alike, any more than in the products of different crafts. So, now fine and just things which political science examines differ and vary so much as to seem to rest on convention only, not on nature. Okay, this is going to be an interesting statement, okay? Anytime he says the word nature, I'm interested. I perk up. What do we, because in metaphysics, we're talking about that, right? Even though this is on ethics, going there. Whenever we're talking about nature, we're talking about the whatness of something, right? We're talking about the mind, the nature of the mind. What is it? We're talking about the nature of happiness and the like. We've already been here an hour. This is where it gets very important. But this is not a good reason, since goods also vary in the same way, because they result in harm to many. For some have been destroyed because of their wealth, others because of their bravery. And so, since this is our subject and these are our premises, we shall be satisfied to indicate the truth roughly and in outline, since our subject and our premises are the things we hold good usually, but not universally. We shall be satisfied to draw conclusions of the same sort. Okay, now this is where it gets good. Each of our claims then ought to be accepted in the same way as claiming to hold good usually. For the educated person seeks exactness in each area to the extent that the nature of the subject allows. For apparently it is just as mistaken to demand demonstrations from a rhetorician as to accept merely persuasive arguments from a mathematician. Further, each person judges rightly that he knows and is a good judge about that. Hence, the good judge in a given area is the person educated in that area, and the unqualifiedly good judge is a person educated in every area. Okay? So you can be a good judge in what? An area in which you're educated, which is fine. And then there are those who are very rare, these polymaths, who are educated in many areas. This is why a youth is not a suitable student of political science. Did you catch that? A youth is not a suitable student for political science because he lacks experience of the actions in life which are the subject and premises of our argument. Moreover, since he tends to follow his feelings, his study will be futile and useless. For the end of political science is action, not knowledge. See, we have knowledge to get to the action, right? Would you rather act on knowledge or act on feelings? Right, remember we were talking about the faculties of the mind, intellect, will, emotions, and appetites? Would you rather act because you're angry or act because you know? Now, anger has a place. You should be angry at certain things that helps you act. But your knowledge should govern your will. And that's a problem with kids. No offense. When I was younger, I was a much more emotional person. And I'm not saying emotions are bad. But they have a place in the hierarchy, right? It does not matter whether he is young in years or immature in character, and there are plenty of people who are immature in character and old in years. Since the deficiency does not depend on age, but results from following his feelings in his life and in a given pursuit. For an immature person, like an incontinent person. Now, what's an incontinent person? Now, in medical terms, if you're incontinent, it means you cannot hold your bathroom. There's a different word I could use for that. Okay? You basically go to the bathroom by yourself. It's lack of control. Okay? In medical terms. Incontinent, in this philosophical sense, is you lack self-control. You know the guy out there who loses control on the highway, right? Starts flipping people off, starts cussing at them, pulling out the gun, waving it around, right? You might be that guy, don't be that guy.
I just pull out my Bible.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Then people start laughing a minute.
And then they start going, oh, I'm sorry, and they start genuflecting.
No, they don't.
They
do
start
that.
repenting, right?
Oh, definitely
Yes,
not.
don't we wish? Well, there are people who lack self-control, not just with anger, but with their appetites, right? And I don't mean just their eating appetites. We have the sexual appetites. We have all sorts of appetites that we lose control over. We lose control from feelings and stuff like that. Okay? They're incontinent. And they get no benefit from this knowledge, but for those who act in accord with reason, remember the faculty of the mind, reason is part of the intellect, in forming their desires and in their actions, knowledge of political science will be of great benefit. Okay? These are the preliminary points about the student, about the way our claims are to be accepted, and about what we propose to do. I think that's a great place to stop, because the next time we're going to start asking the question of what happiness is, given what we just said. I'd like you to read this first book. There will be an assignment about the first book, okay? All right, with that we can hit